All right, let's give a hand to Michael.
So I'm taking a break from talking about my MRP, and I want to talk something that is very passionate, or I'm passionate about, which is creativity. So one of the first things I want to illustrate is this talk is sort of inspired by this man here, Sir Ken Robinson. And he said, human intelligence is richer and more dynamic than we have been led to believe by formal academic education. And what he was talking about in his TED Talk was, do schools kill creativity? So he was saying that the way we're taught in schools limits our ability to think outside the box and only within it. My talk is slightly different than that, but it's related to it. So, take a look at this little girl. And she's, having trouble with the Game Boy, right? She's trying to interact with it, but it's not working, right? I grew up with, in fact, this is like the first, I guess, technology that I was ever exposed to, the Game Boy. And it's so abstract for kids to understand that you cannot always interact with technology. So my talk is in relation to creativity. Do smartphones kill creativity? So, does anybody remember this Tamagotchi?
Yes.
So I have a Tamagotchi too, and these Tamagotchis, they're basically like, in terms of technology, this is like one of the highest tech things back then. But now it's hard to find things that are less intuitive than, I guess, a smartphone. You have your smart watches, and I just went to Best Buy the other day, and they have these, kids' watches, still very sophisticated, not as sophisticated as an iPhone, but more sophisticated than Tamagotchi. So the thing is, when you bring your kids up, and I can't obviously talk for parents, right? But I see a lot of this and a lot of this. But the worst thing I see is when I commit a lot. I commit a lot, and I see this too often, like way too often. And I'm sitting there in the bus, and I look at this, and I wonder, I understand that things have changed, and you have to understand that from Tamagotchi to now, the iPhone, you see, wow, things have changed in a good way. But then you look at this, and it's like, well, how does this affect the way they think? How does it affect the way they think outside the box, right? We're distracting them from birth. So you get, toys like this, where it's like, so this is like, you got your iPad, like an actual holder for the iPad for the child, and then you have this, and I can't believe this exists. I potty. Right? And if you can't read this, I'll just read it. It says, "Make potty training fun and easy." And I didn't think that would be something that's hard, but apparently it is. And then here it says, "Works with all apps." Wow, that works with all apps. And the funny truth is, it doesn't even have like an interesting picture, maybe that a kid would like. It's almost like, checking your emails from potty training, right? So, but anyways, back to the child. This toy was actually recalled because people were complaining, saying it was like too, it was taking away from it, or it would harm the child's mental state. Like, it'll take away from their learning. But you have to ask the question, when you look at this, is this not a reality that we already live in? When there is a toy that exists, when somebody actually created this, and it's Fisher-Price, by the way, so it's not like some secondary company, it's Fisher-Price, and this was recalled, but I think it's also because it was recalled because it was almost like people wanted to, and this is one of the things too, is like people try to, I guess, remain ignorant to the fact that this actually does exist, so they close their eyes and they plug their ears, but this is reality. So, I had Beanie Babies when I was growing up. This is the way it used to look, right? And then transformed to that. It's like, okay, still cute, I can dig it, but then now we got this, and it's like, okay, well, you look at the way it was before, and now you've got an iPad over here, right? And then you start to think, wow, have things changed, but in a bad way, right? And then you see this, and it's like, you see the emotional, and it's like you have this dog plushie, right? But it's not the primary, that's not what it's supposed to be used for. You're not supposed to cuddle with it because it's holding the iPad. And then you realize, or you ask the question, is it relevant to be shaped like a dog? I mean, it's not, but it's like, that's the thing, and I honestly think that this is dangerous. So when I was growing up, I played with a lot of Lego. And the great thing about Lego is, you build these sets, but then I would get bored of it after like a week, and then I would break it down and then make something else. And it really tested like my creativity, and I loved that. But toys these days, the demand is not there anymore because kids are being entertained by smartphones. So you see Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy protection again in the U.S. And things have changed. The demand for toys is not as high as it once was. So instinctively, yeah, I'm sure a lot of us saw this coming. But the thing is, like when it comes to smartphones, they do what you want, right? Like you can swipe, you can go into an app, go into your app, and then you want to play a game if you're bored. It's okay, the smartphone can do that. You can play the game. If you get frustrated by the app or the game, you can just play another game. It does exactly what you expect it to do. But what you lose is imagination. When you have a smartphone that only does what you want it to do, you don't think about what if anymore. It's just what is, right? And you lose creativity. And you're at, what's his name? Steve from Blue's Clues, I think. I watched Blue's Clues a lot when I was a kid. So, and then anybody recognizes this? Yes. I actually thought this was real, and I swear, there's a little ad at the end of the commercial that says, this wasn't real, right? But I swear that wasn't there before. So when I was a kid, or maybe it was there, and I was just so excited that I started throwing chips everywhere to try to get house hippos to my house. But I thought that it was real, and I imagined that it was real. But the thing is, what it does to your brain is, you got your right and left side, and what ends up happening is the creative part just, it becomes grayed out. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, when you have creativity, when you have imagination, in my opinion, you get innovation. And when you're taking that away from kids at such a young age, with smartphones, that innovation that you once had just disappears. So I don't really have a solution for it, really. It's something that I think about a lot, and I'm currently concerned about it. But I think that if we bring our children up the way things are right now, which is constantly being distracted by smartphones from birth, you'll get lack of innovation in the future. And we won't be moving forward as a society anymore. So as current parents and parents of the future, I think that we really need to figure out the problem, maybe not together or maybe by ourselves figure out our own problems, but hopefully we can create a solution that is at least creative. So. Questions?
What age do you think this should be implemented? So I have a lot of baby cousins, and my aunts just do it to make them be quiet and stuff. But I also have a 13-year-old sister who is not obsessed with a phone, but she creates all these pieces. Yeah. And that would not have happened unless she had one. So she knows how to do Photoshop at the age of 12. She already knows how to do Illustrator. She learned and taught herself all that stuff.
It's definitely.
So there's. So my question is at what age do you think? Because this is definitely this is not going to go away, right?
That's the thing. So it's obviously important to understand that things have changed, and I can't say that things should be like Tamagotchi because that's what I grew up. Because before that it was sticks and stones, right? So you can't just say, it's got to be the way it was before, because you're not adapting to change. So we have to. I don't know what age, but when I see a baby getting distracted, and a lot of people say, it's easy, right? That's the easy way out, right? And that's the thing, is actually half of the Americans who, in that article I was talking about when I had that Fisher-Price iPad toy, they were saying that they do agree, or half of them did say that they admitted to showing or distracting their kids with iPads or devices. So 13, they're getting skills, right? If your cousin is developing skills, that's great. But, and again, it's such a complex issue that I can't really, and I'm not a parent, right? I just know that when I'm bringing up a child, which I plan on, having a child, whatever, right? Not something I'm thinking about now, but whenever that does happen, I don't really want to, that's not what I want to do, right? And one of the complaints that people were saying with that Fisher-Price toy was distracting from the outside world, right? You're not getting enough interaction between parents and children. So it's but how do you, when you're growing up in a civilization that's like this, in technology, so rooted in what we're doing, it's hard to imagine how things could be different. And I just don't know how to solve an issue like this.
I think part of that conversation is the tactile learning that happens with Lego, with picking something up, a physical object. Mm-hmm. So you speak about the classroom setting, right? That is still a large part of how we learn to put things together. And studies that have been done that up to a certain age, like a child can't tell what's real and what's not. Like if you were to show them a cartoon, that perception of that cartoon, they see that as the real world, right? And so in showing that, iPad in front of them at that age, that is actually really screwing with their perception.
Yeah.
After a certain age, and I can't recall the actual study, like what particular age that is, they start to differentiate.
Right. And
the other thing is, they see the world as is, what you're, if you're a parent, they're just going to look to you and go, oh, mom and dad's got a phone. Well, that's just the way things are, right? So if that change as a parent, you go, you know what, maybe I'm not going to play with my phone, maybe I'm going to do something else. They go, okay, that's just what we do.
Right. Yeah, and also to add on, one of the things I was going to mention was, when you're a baby going into childhood, there are more connections formed in your brain. This is something about psychology. So if you have two parents, one speaks French and one that speaks English, and they both speak to you in their different languages, instinctively you grow up to be fluent in both, but you don't try to. And that's the thing, is you learn more when you're a baby, and when you're distracted, it's almost like confining us to, in my opinion, a box, and we're not going to be thinking outside the box anymore. And I feel like it's just dangerous. I feel so passionate about this, but I don't know what to do. Right?
Let's take one more comment.
I was gonna, so I have two nephews, they're 3 and 2, and like my sister and her husband are pretty good with not giving their phones the cover. They never go on it. YouTube on the TV, which is still not like good in it per se, but it's more that they can control that. But what's interesting is the few times where they've asked me for my phone and I give it to them, they look at it, play with it for like a couple of minutes, and then they're like, I don't want this, and they give it back. Compared to like my sister, where she has games that are really bright and colorful. So that's just something that I
So
thought
the
was
parents that kind of limited the use.
The grayscale.
Yeah, great skill. Yeah.
Because of it. Okay, so maybe then there's a solution right there. Just turn grayscale on and we'll see what's
Honestly, it's
attractive, right?
so like,
I didn't think of that before, but that might actually be a good idea to combat that, because kids love their colors and stuff, right? Maybe that could be one of the.
I can contribute like a very short comment as a parent, because I raised my daughter without technology. I think she's 7 and she gets 1 movie a week on the weekend. That's her entire exposure to technology. And there is a big difference in the attention span and focus and grit, sort of like an ability to commit to a task and see it through the end. So I'd really recommend that. All right, wonderful. Let's give Michael. Okay, we have time for one more presentation.